Hawk loses his mind. He has a machete in his hand. He's destroying the hotel room with the machete. The place is just absolutely trashed. And my song is playing in the background while this is going on. Hello, welcome to the Random Convos Over Coffee podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Burkowski.
And I'm somebody else today. No. You totally got me. No, let's roll. I'm Philip McCullough. It's great to be here today. We're popping in with another episode of Random Convos. And, clearly part of the randomness of the show was we like to have a good time, too. We make each other laugh, and probably why we've always worked well together, both professionally and, in our friendship as well. So
yeah, but nobody cares about
right.
that. They want to get to the
extra coffee, and it's the second episode.
Cheers.
So, I'm thinking probably nobody's going to actually see this one. 6 people. Your kids have been asking about it. Mine will probably want to watch it. Maybe my wife will watch it and laugh, and, somebody's mom. Who will probably
Hi, Mom.
watch this, right? Hi, Mom.
Indeed.
So,
well, guys, let's welcome back to the podcast. Hopefully you made it through the first one. Sorry it was a little slow. We're going to figure this stuff out.
Yep.
All the cool kids are doing it, so we figure we would too. Right?
wow, cool kids. I'm 47 years old. Nobody has called me that in a long time. I actually miss the days. I'll just interject.
I said the cool kids were doing it. We should too.
Okay. I miss the days where my kids thought I was old and thought I was 29. Now, mind you, I was like 38 at the time, so
right.
That was fantastic. Maybe not for people who are 29, because obviously my kids thought 29 was pretty old. So
I'm 42, and people still look at me and go, "Oh, you're such a baby," and I'm like, what? Okay, if you say so.
Oh, well, then if we're going on the age things, years ago, my cousin and I used to go to Barnes and Noble. We'd read, we'd get coffee. And we'd sit and read and, hang out and catch up. We were sitting at a table one day. Each of us was reading something that we were talking about, whatever. And this older gentleman comes up and he goes, "It's so nice to see you hanging out with your son in a bookstore." Now, my cousin is a year and a half younger than me, and we've pretty much grown up together. And so,
right.
we did so much together, and we were out on our own and stuff. And I was just like, wow, I didn't want to insult the gentleman, because clearly he thought that was a fantastic moment, and we were having a good time, but it was just like, how old do I look? I was still
hilarious.
in my 20s.
That's
so
hilarious.
yeah, so nobody's confusing me with still, when am I going to grow up? Well, at least not in my look and appearance anyway.
That's funny. That is funny. Well, guys, I think what do we decide we're going to talk about it on our Random Convos today?
Let's do music. We
Music.
both have had some experiences with music from different aspects and elements. So today we thought we would just jump in and randomize.
Sounds good. Well, that is the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
So I know I know you had done some experience with live bands. Is that right? You used to play in a band?
Yeah. So early on, I as a kid, my parents would encourage. I have a brother and a sister. They encouraged us to play music. We had a piano in the house, and my sister and brother both took lessons and played that. It just wasn't my thing. So I didn't, but I was always interested in guitar. So eventually my parents bought me a guitar for Christmas one year, and I was taking lessons and stuff. And I actually was studying with this jazz musician who was in college, a phenomenal musician. But at the time, I didn't appreciate jazz. So I learned great structure, but I never really applied myself. So so fast forward to my later teen years, and it was like, man, I actually enjoyed playing, because he eventually went back to school and couldn't teach me, so I had studied probably for a year or two, and started picking up on my own. Went out and I think all I had was acoustics at the time. Went out and bought a used electric, and no idea what I was looking for. I mean, I didn't really know the instrument. Not that I as you said in episode 1, we're not experts in anything we talk about.
Indeed.
We enjoy the things we talk about. We, have some kind of, history or we're looking into it, or life experience, but by no means have ever become an expert in one particular area. And so, I started to just try to figure it out. And through that, a gentleman I was working with, his brother-in-law was a guitar instructor, and it turns out he was an incredible jazz player, but he would play all kinds of styles. I saw him play live once, and was fascinated by that. Went back and started taking lessons all the way up through improv. In fact, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I was living in Pennsylvania when I first met him, and even when I moved to Maryland, I would still drive an hour back to take lessons, hour and a half lessons, and he would actually teach me out of his home by then, because we had developed a trust and stuff, and he was just really drawing out of me what I didn't realize was in me. So
you got into it. You started doing. You got some lessons from an awesome jazz teacher. Yeah. And you followed that up and started taking some additional lessons. You realized that you had a passion for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so at some point you got into actually being on stage, yeah?
Yeah, a couple times. It wasn't long lasted. Some friends of mine were also musicians, and a good friend of mine, Chris, his brother played guitar and sang, and Chris was a drummer. One of his friends, Damon, and we did some stuff, and then. So
can I get into that with you?
Sure.
So you're up on because this is something that fascinates me. For people who don't know, I've done music production, and I'm usually the guy behind the boards, and I've done some stuff that's been up on MTV, but I'm not the guy who wants to be on MTV. I don't want to be the face of something and have a microphone and everybody staring at me. So I've always been fascinated with people who can get up on stage with a room full of people watching you play, and tell me about that. What's that experience like?
In a band setting, so I play with that. I play with other like I said, with church groups and stuff too, where I'm up on stage. That is easier to me than when I go up and do a presentation or a speech.
Really?
Because there are more people around than just me.
Okay.
And some of the projects, right. So I've never been the front man. I don't ever see me being the front man. I'm not a singer. But I like to play.
You're part of it makes you more comfortable knowing that you're part of a collective. There's a lot of people around you, and you're part of a team.
Yeah.
But you're still up there in front of people that are staring at you.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first started doing it, I didn't necessarily stare back. Part of it was, I'm trying to, remember the music. I'm in my head. For some instances, I was actually sight reading what I was playing. For some of the projects that I've done, just because I didn't have a lot of time to learn it, and back then when I was in it more, doing the lessons and keeping up even with music theory, which I will admit over the 20-something years now that it's been since I've really been into that at that level, needs a good refresher. We'll just put it that way. But back then, I had opportunity not to have to always look out. So it allowed me to really just focus on what I need to focus on. Doing. And it helped a lot with the whole stage fright. If I was doing the club scene, it was just me or something like that. Yeah, then maybe. But I don't know. I've gotten to the point now too where sometimes I end up doing public speaking and presentations on things and topics, and I can't say that you're ever just comfortable. I mean, you get your own level of comfort, but right. I've been able to at least say, okay, I have to do this. I'm going to go do this now, and just kind of move.
And people say get comfortable with being uncomfortable,
yes,
which is a very difficult mindset to process. How do you be comfortable with being uncomfortable? You get used to it, I guess. It's kind of like, you find that zone where you're going to get through it and you're going to get through the other side. Yeah. You're doing a presentation, or you're talking to somebody for the first time that you admire, or you're on stage in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Right.
And I guess you get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
And it's the first part is actually committing to it. You just got to go and do it. You got to say, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this now. For instance, I after my last physical, I wanted to lose some weight. So I've been running.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And so I've been running, and I joke with my wife about it because I use the analogy, I'm like an elephant trying to run fast. I feel like it's just big feet clumping,
I feel
and I've
I'm
been
there too, buddy.
Right. And so it's, late fall, we're getting some colder weather, and the cold weather doesn't bother me, but you motivating yourself at, 10 o'clock at night to get out and walk to get the heart rate up, and then run to really try to elevate everything. And then I do a combination of running and walking. I'm not at a level yet of just running solid, but doing that, I feel like I'm going to quit the whole time until I get that first, good couple 3, 4, 5 minute run in that's solid. And once I hit that point, even when I get back into walking, around the development, and then know I'm going to do another run or whatever, in a few minutes.
Getting past that milestone.
Right. Once I hit that first mark, I know I'm good. I'll be able to complete. But up until then, it's constantly you've got to do this. You've got to do this. You've got to do this. And and it's sometimes I'm literally telling myself, if you want what if you're willing to do what others aren't, you will have one day what others don't. And that's one of the things that sometimes when I'm running, it's like I want good health, I want a good marriage and a good relationship with my kids, and and I want to have a good successful business one day that I can run and hopefully actually pass along. Whether if my kids are like, hey Dad, I don't want that, that's fine, but pass it along to somebody that actually can improve upon to whatever level I've got. And so everything I look at, I'm looking at it with that mindset now, and just saying, okay, what do I need to do to get past where I am today to get to where I want to be tomorrow? And a lot of it is what you're saying. You just have to start getting uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was an interesting concept, and something that took me a long time to wrap my head around. And tell my kids that you always got to strive to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
If you can challenge yourself and you can rise to that challenge, you can do anything. If you can find a way to do what you feel is impossible. I remember my son when he was taking Taekwondo, and before every belt test, he'd have to learn, this series of moves that you would do on test day to get to the next level. He's like, and every time it would get more and more complex, and there'll be different levels. And he would say, hey, I don't know if I can learn that. I don't know if I can do it. And I'd tell him, I was like, you can do anything if you put your mind to it, which sounds really cliche, by the way. And I can't believe that actually just came out of my mouth. But it's true.
It happens. If you're officially old.
I am officially old. I am a dad.
Yeah.
If you focus on what you need to do, and you just say, and you commit, like you said, commit to it. If you commit to it, and you put your mind to it, and you just put all of your energy into it, more than likely 9 out of 10 times you're going to succeed and you're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And he did. He was actually he graduated from his Taekwondo class as the youngest at that time. He was the youngest to ever graduate with a black belt.
Nice.
And I was impressed, and I'm very proud of him for always sticking to it and pushing through, his mental hurdles of thinking he couldn't do it, and he did it.
Yeah.
And I think that'll help him later in life. I mean, today, he's 17. I mean, when he graduated, I think he was like 7. I think he was 7. And
nice.
Now he's 17. 10 years later, he's still got that mindset of, I'm going to challenge myself. He gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning and goes outside and practices soccer because that's what his passion is. He wants to play professional soccer at some level, and he always challenges himself to try and reach whatever level it is that he wants to reach.
Nice.
And I've always admired that about him, and I think that's something that was instilled in him at a young age. Like you said, you put your mind to it and you commit. You don't know if you can do it, and you push through it.
Yeah.
I started years ago when to kind of bring it full circle back into the music industry. I kind of always wanted to challenge myself and do different things, and I started producing music pretty young, and bought a guitar. I didn't know how to play a guitar. I fumbled through trying to figure it out. Went to my cousin's house, who would play guitar at a church group, and he kind of showed me some chords and knew how to do some things. I learned how to play the keyboard. I learned how to because I've always been kind of a tech nerd. I got into producing music on the computer using samplers and things like that, and taught myself how to do it. And they got to the point where I was producing music in a studio, flying artists in from all around the country to record on the tracks that I had produced, and put a full album out, and it ended up winning compilation album of the year from one of the websites that sold it. But what I also did was take the music version of that, so it was all the music that I produced, and went and got it copywritten. I used LegalZoom to copyright it, and then registered with BMI, and put that music up on mp3.com, which back in the day, this was years and years ago when MP3 first started coming out as a format, mp3.com was a website you could upload your music to, and they would have streaming rights. So you'd actually get paid for your music to play, which is pretty cool. So you'd put your music up there, people would listen to it, and you'd get like, I don't know, a penny or something, like a fraction of a penny, but it all added up. And some people were actually getting $1,000 checks and $5,000 checks for their music getting streamed millions of times, which is pretty cool. And there wasn't a whole lot of them out there. One of the cool things was they had Boone and Murray, this is a production company for MTV. They do Real World, Road Rules, The Challenge, some of those shows. They had scouts that were on mp3.com looking for independent artists, because in the backgrounds of the shows, of course, they had music soundtracks. And so they needed independent artists to submit music to play on the shows. So they would go and they would find somebody that they liked, and they would reach out to them. To this day, Phil, I still got the phone call. I got to find it. I had a phone call from the senior music producer for Boone and Murray's reality division, MTV's reality division. And he left me a message saying, I'm interested in, licensing your music for some of our shows. Please give me a call back. And I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. You're a kid.
You can't delete that ever. I
no,
get that,
no,
right?
no, not at all. You're a kid, and you got music put up there, and you're just trying this new thing, this experiment, and somebody recognizes you, and they're interested in your work, and they want to put it up on the show. So I got super excited. I called him back, and he says, I'm going to send you a contract. And I get this contract in the mail, and I read over the contract, and it says $1 per master, and I'm like, so bummed. I'm like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make lots of money, and I get this contract, and it says $1 per master is what they're. I didn't understand anything at the time. All I knew was I needed to register my music on ASCAP or BMI. This is, for those who don't know, it's a company that tracks where your music's played, so that they can collect money, royalties, for your music getting played, so that you as an artist get paid. And if you are not a member of ASCAP or BMI, then there's no guarantee you're going to get paid, because there's nobody looking out for you, basically, to track that stuff. So you got to do it. So I signed the contract. I sent my masters, which were a CD of the music, to the person at MTV, and I thought, okay, that's that. I got $1 for the CD for the tracks. I'm never going to see another dime as long as I live. And then the check came in, and the first time I got a check from the show, I was at the house, and I walked out and I opened the mail, and I saw this check from BMI. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I opened it up, and it was for like $5,000. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is free money that I just earned. And I didn't, I was super excited. And I was like, this is really cool. So what happens is, MTV, they select your music tracks, and then they put it in the background of the shows. But for like 5 seconds, 15 seconds, 10 seconds at a clip. Well, that music gets aired not only on the show when it airs, but on reruns in the U.S. and overseas, internationally. So UK, Ireland, I don't know, you name it, where it's, there's always MTV Switzerland. I mean, there's right. MTV everything. And they re-air those episodes, and you get a commission for every time that music plays, and it all adds up. And I had no idea, but I was super excited when I found that out. There's cool. A whole industry that exists that I didn't know about. Yeah. And to this day, I mean, years and years go by, and I'm probably collecting royalty checks off of that one set of masters for, I don't know, 4 years. They're still using the tracks. One of the coolest stories I got is, we would watch the show, and we would record every show on VHS because we didn't have DVD recorders back then. Yes, I'm watching, and this is MTV, folks. For people who don't know, this is when reality started to show. Yeah. Before, years ago, they used to play actual music videos. Right.
This was after music television stopped being music television. Right.
Exactly. And they just started experimenting with reality shows in between the music video shows to kind of break up the time.
Right.
So this is it's kind of still new at the time. But we would watch The Challenge and Battle of the Sexes, The Challenge, Road Rules, Real World. We watch them and we would record them to try and look for those 5-second clips. Where one of the coolest ones I ever had was there was a character named Puck. And if you know Puck, Puck's a little rough around the edges.
Yeah, I remember Puck, actually.
He was a character, and I loved Puck, and he was awesome on the show. There was an episode where he was going to get married on the beach, and they were going to fly his girlfriend in, and they were recording in some island. I don't remember exactly where, but it was in the middle of nowhere. It was a beautiful tropical island somewhere. They were going to fly her in, and they were going to get married on the beach, and they were going to record the episode. Whatever reason, whatever happened logistically, they couldn't get her into the country. She wasn't able to get. Maybe it was the visa. Maybe she came in and had difficulties getting. Whatever the reason was, she couldn't get into the country. So they were going to scrap the whole wedding. They had to go, and the producers had to go tell Puck what was going on. Puck loses his mind. He has a machete in his hand. He's destroying the hotel room with the machete. The place is just absolutely trashed. And my song is playing in the background while this is going on. That was probably one of the most memorable moments where I had the music track on MTV and got the royalties from it, and that was very cool.
Oh yeah, and having it an explosive scene like that, everybody's watching the replay. That's the scene everybody wants to see. Oh my goodness, he loses his mind and trashes the hotel room.
Yeah, that was awesome. Pretty interesting.
Awesome. Well, I have written no award-winning pieces. I started experimenting with MIDI and stuff using sequencers in my 20s, in my mid-20s, just to be able to make backing tracks for the guitar stuff. And I backed it up to a Elisa's data disc, which actually used 3.5-inch floppy disk to back up your MIDI tracks. And I remember backed up my Yamaha QI70 sequencer. It's a small unit. It's got a little mini keyboard on the top. And I literally would play out piano pieces on this 16-key keyboard to try to give it a real-time feel to the pieces. And then some of them, writing bass lines and stuff, those I had to sequence because they were more advanced than what I could play. And I thought I'm going to back this stuff up, and so
Is your phone going off, Phil?
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, sorry. So, there we go. I thought I silenced it with my watch, but I guess not. So anyway,
so with MIDI tracks, you were
right. So I backed everything up because I thought, and somewhere I have these recorded, and I've gone through all kinds of media formats. Anybody that remembers mini disc, I loved that format for recording scratch tracks for guitar because I could record practices and erase them and stuff, and it wasn't production quality, but it wasn't bad, and they did get better over the years. But so I had sequenced these pieces and parts and stuff, and I would play real guitar over top of them, and then I would try to record that down on the mini disc, and that was kind of my budget back in the day, and everything had been acquired on some kind of deal, or I bought it used off of eBay or something, to acquire what I needed. And long story short, my QI70 got packed up. I eventually got married. One day I'm unpacking stuff from from several moves, and I find my Yamaha, and I'm like, oh, and then I find the batteries are dead, and the backup battery's dead, and so nothing's on it. So I restore it. I actually find my data disk with the backup disk in it, and I cannot get the information back into the Yamaha, which unfortunately is the only way that I can actually play these tracks. So I have stuff that took me 6 months to finally get put together, and I can't say I've lost it. It's all there. I just can't get it back into the media it needs to be in to actually play it back and try and do something with it. So
that sucks.
Fast forward to today, I've got songs that are in my head that that getting back into playing again now has brought that out and said, okay, as we talked about in episode 1, what things can we pass down to our children and generations and stuff of things that we did that we can leave a legacy. And one of my goals is to actually just do, even if it's nothing more than a 4-track EP that I record of my playing, originals or anything that I've redone in my style, to be able to do that. And I'll tell you what, that's been something on my mind for 5-10 years maybe, and it's gone through stages, as most things in life do. And now that I have my in-home studio, mainly for video and production work and the things that I'm doing now, but having that, I've been able to actually move my music equipment in here. It was simple to hook up because everything else is set up, and so that's now one of my goals, is to go back and put that together. So whether it ever wins any awards and ends up on any kind of TV shows, I can't guarantee, but it's a fun process getting back into it. And like everything, like the running, it's the same as when you play. You start playing and you're like, man, this is going nowhere fast, and I'll force myself to play through an hour, half hour, whatever I have time to do, even if it's bad, just because it's getting my fingers back into it, it's getting my mind and my head back into it, and and so. Again, like everything else, where it lands is still yet to be determined. But it's a fun road. So
is that like exercising? So when you don't feel like doing it, but then you start doing it, and you start seeing gains from it, then you get you more motivated to do it. It's like anything, creating music, you kind of force yourself into it because you want to do it, but your mind and your body are not quite in sync, and so you're trying to work through those processes. And then once you start seeing the gains, then you get back into it. Yeah,
and the instrument matters too. My guitars have sat for a while; they need some work on them. So again, I don't have the cash lying around to send them out and have somebody restore them properly for me. As far as the playability, I'm not worried about the aesthetic right now, but the playability, and that. I didn't realize how much of a difference that makes until you try to play on one that's just sat for a while and needs some work to it. So instead, I've gone the route now of, okay, what tools do I need? And the nice thing with YouTube and stuff, there's so many videos out there that I should be able to do 90% of the work that needs done on these and get them to a better playability. And I think that helps a lot too. I was at a friend's years ago and had the opportunity to play a Paul Reed Smith. I'd never played one before, which is a fairly nice guitar, certainly out of my budgets at the time. Well, even now for that matter. But finding an instrument that just fits your hand, or whatever it is that you're playing, just fits you like a glove, and that happened to be that particular instrument for me, and it felt like you could play no wrong notes. So all those things do add up and make a difference for sure. Same as
you talk about a quality guitar when you're playing a quality guitar. It just feels different.
It does, and
like a Fender Stratocaster or something like that.
and they're all shaped and styled different too. So like my playing style, or the way that I hold the guitar, the way I like the action of the strings, or the sound even of it. Those are all things that are going to be different for somebody else. And then of course you have aesthetic too. Some people are like, hey, I want it to look, traditional or classic or old school or whatever you want to call it, or vintage, I guess. And some people want modern, some people want unique, and stuff like that. And it's really what comes together to allow you to express your art in the way that represents you, and not necessarily like, I'm not looking to be somebody else, even though I have people I certainly respect in their music and their styles. And welcome back, Shaun.
So we had a little bit of a technical issue. The episode got cut short. Technical failure on our part. Apologize for the break in the flow. We're picking this back up day 2 here to finish out the episode. So if we look different, that's why. On the audio.
Okay, so
we'll figure out a way to cut this up.
Right.
All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, so we were talking about music. We were talking about guitars and how the quality or simply the right instrument, because there are some great instruments out there nowadays that are at a good budget price that play great and sound great, but it really comes down to what fits you personally. And I've noticed even with my own playing, you're on the right instrument, you're on the right music, you're in the right mindset, it really just starts to flow out of you, and suddenly you're producing things either that you didn't think you could, or you're hitting qualities that you really like, and it really does help.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Equipment definitely makes a difference. Well, I say that, but then I've heard plenty of producers that have been using things like children's xylophones and Fisher Price instruments from yard sales that can make them sound amazing. So, yeah, you're right. You're right. In the more traditional sense, like guitars and drums, and that definitely makes a big difference. If you can get creative as a producer and take these wacky instruments and make something unique out of it, that's very cool as well.
Well, the nice point about a producer is you can take that instrument and give it the sound you want it to sound like. Whereas on the playability side, and whatever the instrument is, if it isn't fitting your playing style, doesn't fit your hands, if it's a hands-on instrument, if it if it's a bad reed. My daughter plays the clarinet, and she was playing on a bad reed and just struggling, and I'm like, should we replace your reed? Just initially it's like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, well, let's try one. So we bought a new reed, and night and day difference, and she was able to enjoy playing it again. So it's any aspect of that side of it, but certainly the producer side then is to say, okay, how do I make this sound impeccable? Yeah. How do I make it sound better than even maybe the person playing thought it could be? Yeah,
indeed. I remember days of going into secondhand stores and just sifting through racks and racks of records. I love that. That was the best part of producing, is just going through and finding these records from some country, and you couldn't read any of the wording that was on the front of it, and it was this dusty looking thing, and you're going to get it home and you don't know what you're going to get out of it because you're buying it for 5 cents at some secondhand store. Mm-hmm. You get it home and you listen through the record from start to finish, and you just listen for that 2 seconds, that sound, that that kick drum, that snare drum, or that little riff, 3 notes, and you just like, that's cool. And you grab that little note and you chop it up and you put it into your sampler, and you're able to play those instruments back in a new progression and new chords and do your own thing with it. But I love that. That was the best part of creating music and being a producer. I love the art of just taking something old and making it new and making it your own. And I know a lot of hip-hop producers, rap producers, urban producers, EDP, whatever you want to call it, they get a bad rap for taking sampling. Sampling often gets a bad rap. It's not. It's an art. It's an art form, especially if you do it right. I mean, if you're just taking something and you just completely rip it off, then yeah, of course. That there is an art to that too, but I prefer breaking it up and playing those, making it your own. And doing something completely unique with just the sound, those unique sounds. That was part of the enjoyment. I definitely miss that. I did it so long ago and for so long, producing music. And then when I hear some of these new guys come out nowadays with the technology and the things that are out here, and just like, nah, I'm good. I've moved on from that, but those days. But I definitely look back on them fondly and enjoy my time. In creating music.
Some of that stuff's incredible. I used to, and I love doing this, and I know I talked about having a portable mini disc recorder back in the day, and I loved recording natural sounds. I remember at a friend's house one time recording the CD-ROM drive drawer, because who knows what that is anymore, going in and out of the machine.
That's interesting.
And it had such a unique sound to it, the way it would suck it back in and spit it back out, the way the gears would
mechanics, okay, yeah.
Yep. And it just sounded so cool. Almost something like off of a Star Trek episode where a door would go up and down. And I'm like, that's such an awesome sample. And I would sit there and just sample these things. And I even have a clip of him going, must get the perfect sample at some point, because I was just in and out, with this drawer. But
that's interesting.
But I love being on the natural sound sampling too. How do I sample nature? I do backpacking. How do I sample the sounds and get ambient sounds? Right. So if I get to the point of doing a video project with that, do I have the natural sound, background sound of that can play underneath of whatever's going on and whatnot. So that's fascinating, because I've never gotten into the sampling side the way you did, and I've always been curious about that, but I've never broken it down to that level. I've been on the other side where Okay, this is the sound we're looking for. How do you mic this drum kit? How do you mic this instrument? How do you change the dynamic? Hey, we're getting these reflections. What do we need to do to stop it? And
that's an art form unto itself, the
right.
audio engineering and to be able to do the recording sessions. Like you said, getting the specific sound. I mean, there's a kick drum from Led Zeppelin that has a very specific sound, right? The kick drum, the drum set for Led Zeppelin, it sounds very, very unique than everything. And you go listen to a Beatles recording, and it's completely different, right? And
well, even I think of Phil Collins in the '80s with his gated drum, his gated snare was heavily gated. It just gave that distinct pop sound. You knew he was playing. And you hear it in the Air Tonight a lot on that song, and it's just. The backstories on a lot of these things are interesting too. When you get to talk to some of these engineers, and they're like, I met one engineer was on Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Oh, that's cool.
Live, they did I think 2 live shows for that. And hearing the backstory, like, oh hey, this was an accident. And, Roger Waters loved it, and they kept it in the show, or they were, rented a production facility for like a month, setting these things up to do this and whatnot. Or there's a Led Zeppelin album where the reel-to-reel tape laying over top of each other too long started to transfer the audio to a different section. It plays backwards, and they loved the sound of it and kept it in the actual recording.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's just, things like that I think you and I had a brief discussion yesterday as we were talking about some stuff, and you just said, most of the stuff that you've come across has been accidents, in the projects and stuff that you've worked on that you really liked. And I think that holds true in a lot of things out there where it's an accident and somebody goes, man, that was awesome. That was great. We got to do that. And people build from those techniques.
Yeah, indeed. Some of the best music that I've ever made has been accidents, where I take a sample and you run it through a bunch of different processes, and you try things, and you reverse it, slow it down, chop it up, and it's like, oh, that sounds really cool. You didn't intend to do it. And we were talking about video production. Some of the best, you could go through storyboarding a video production, and I said, some people like to have every frame identified before they go into production, but me, I just like to run around and shoot stuff, because those accidents, those happy accidents, things just hit in the right way, or you get the right angle, or something happens that was unexpected. Those are some of the most beautiful moments. And the same thing with music production. It's the same type of deal. Like those happy accidents can be what makes or breaks that the song.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's storyboarding. That's another one. I'm fascinated by the people who can storyboard every frame. I cannot.
No.
I'm a scene. Let me show what my scene should be, and then let me figure it out inside the scene. So, as I had said, the project I was working on, it had 6 frames. It was a 1-sheet storyboard, 6 panels on it, super super simple, and enough just to guide me from beginning to end. I know where I wanted the story to end and where I wanted it to start.
Yeah.
And and we'll when it's done, I'll let you know. We'll see how well I did.
Good deal. Well, I guess we should wrap this up. I don't know if you can hear this, but I got Gotti cutting the lawn behind me. I don't know if it picks it up on the mic. Can you hear this?
I'm not hearing it.
Okay.
So I can turn my level up.
No? Okay. Well, that's good.
It's not annoying. If it's there and you as the listeners can hear it, and you're annoyed that I actually took a second to try to hear it, then...
that's what editing is for.
Absolutely.
We'll edit this down.
Perfect.
Well, good deal. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully you made it to the end here again. Sorry for the snafu earlier in the episode, but we were able to salvage this and finish this one up. I'm glad, because there was some good stories and there was some good content in this one. On to episode 3. They're just going to get better, so stick with us.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed the conversation, Shaun.
Have a good week, everybody.
Yeah, have a good week.
See you, Phil.
Yeah.